the Montreal Canadiens, for God's sake. The first time, can you hear me in the back?
No.
You can't?
Okay, just put it up a little closer.
Put it up. The first time I met Rosalie was, gosh, 10 years ago, and it was at a orthomolecular conference in Vancouver. And the poor woman had come, she was going to meet me, and we were going to talk about natural medicine and health and how important it is to have a healthy body to make a healthy mind. And it was the playoffs, and my brothers had come to the hotel in Vancouver, my family's in Vancouver, and we'd opened the mini bar and we had wine and beer, and there was, I guess I was still smoking cigarettes, and poor Rosalie knocked on the door to talk about health. I think she was absolutely horrified, I'm sure, but things have gotten better since then. Rosita, you're extraordinary. Thank you so much. And Rosalie, wonderful as usual. I want to say you organizers are amazing. If this is your first conference and you've got this sort of turnout, that's an extraordinary amount of work and a really, really job well done. So, these conferences are so important because you're not going to get the kind of information from your doctor, nor are your patients, that you will get from each other at these conferences. How many people here are practitioners? And how many are nutritional practitioners? Any regular straight old doctors? One! So how many of you have just come and... You do both?
Double dipping.
Double dipping. Wow, I won't even go there. As Rosalie mentioned, 12 years ago now, and every year I get to add a year, it's either 12 or 13, that it's gotten to be so long that I can't even remember how many is thrilling. I had a great big public flip out that a lot of people read about. It was quite spectacular. If you're going to flip out, don't do it on the evening news. It's not recommended, not good for very many careers, I might add. It kind of makes you toast. And I was able, through orthomolecular medicine, which as Rosalie pointed out is a practice that doesn't treat the symptoms of mental illness the way conventional medicine does. It treats the cause of the symptom. It eliminates the cause of the symptom and thus cures the patient. Enormously different than throwing drugs on a pre-existing chemical imbalance. A totally different approach. Fascinating, amazing, but it does get people well. And although I'm not perfect, much to my horror and shock. In fact, today at the hotel, I must say I wondered if I was doing okay. I left my keys in the room as I wanted to do and went out for a little walk and got back to the hotel and asked for keys, and the fellow asked for ID, and so I whipped out my ID and I stood there and he gave me a funny look. I thought, I know I'm not crazy again. I know, why am I getting that look? And I looked back at him and he looked back at me. And I'd given him my medical marijuana card. And no, I'm not holding in case anybody comes up to me after. Don't even try. So, I thought, whoa, I bring that up. Yeah, it was a good moment. To say, one of the things that happened to me on the way from the airport with Louisa was wonderful, and it's one of the reasons you guys should keep coming to these conferences. I've had some other medical stuff, not mental, go a bit awry in the last 4 years, and it's been a bit of a struggle. But I do get medical marijuana, which most people in Montana don't. We started chatting in the car, and I asked her what led her to nutritional therapy, and she told a story that had so many elements in it that were part of my problem. And just in that short car ride, I got 2 really great tips that I'm going to take home and be able to use. These conferences are amazing that way. The trading of information is so imperative. So I urge you to keep coming. I'm going to, a lot of the information that you get in these conferences is intentionally ignored by the mainstream medical establishment, particularly in the area of mental health, much more so than other areas, for a very simple reason. And the reason is that the pharmaceutical industry is the most profitable industry in the world. It is more profitable in terms of profit margin than oil. We in the United States have been in a war for 5 years about oil. If an industry is so powerful it can send a country to war, can you imagine what an industry with an even higher profit margin has at stake and the power it has in keeping certain information from you? And the reason that it keeps the information from you is because, and this is really important, it's against the law internationally to patent a naturally occurring substance. Monsanto has tried to get around that law, sometimes with success, sometimes not, but it is not as profitable for the pharmaceutical industry, who fund much of our, in mental health, mental hospitals, mental health organizations, teaching hospitals at universities. They don't want you taking niacin and vitamin C and zinc. Their profit margin will go down. And at the moment, they make trillions and trillions of dollars from the mentally ill, from drugs. And they basically own the industry of mental health. I'm going to quickly, I'm not going to go into what orthomolecular is because Rosalie did that so wonderfully, except that you should know basically it's a process whereby the toxins are removed from the body and the nutritional deficiencies are replenished, I suppose is the word. The history of the care of the mentally ill is one that I'm sure most of you know is just absolutely horrific. It's really, really horrific. So I'm going to dwell on that a bit tonight. I can't tell you what I did to get well because it wouldn't apply to someone else. You could have 10 people who are diagnosed as manic depression in a room. They could have 10 different things wrong with them and be treated in 10 different ways using orthomolecular medicine. So what I do doesn't really apply to what anyone else does. The marijuana is not for the bipolar. Just thought you might want to know that. It's a dodgy proposition. It's a balancing act. The first thing in our history that we know of that human beings did to mentally ill people was something called trepanning, T-R-E-P-A-N-N-I-N-G, some people say trepanning. It is something, and they found old skulls where they drilled a hole in your head and let the bad spirits out. And they found some really old skulls with these holes in them. I know there were a few people in the 60s doing that, but I think that was something a bit different. You can tell I was a child of the 60s. There's a few of us boomers here. The Greeks, the Egyptians, many older civilizations believed that people were mentally ill when all the gods were warring inside them. And this caused a great riot of confusion in the poor person who had been inhabited by these arguing and conflicting voices. And so that was seen for a while as an explanation of mental illness. I'm shortening this extremely, but it's a fascinating history. This changed, interestingly, with the advent of Judaism. And it changed because monotheism went a step farther, and it changed the dynamic of the possession by gods, having them more in your head, to the individual self being out of sync with the gods.